this kind of monogamous opposite sex covenants until death do us part, right, was a revolution in the ancient world because it did away with mistreatment of slaves. It did away with polygamy and it did away with a lot of sexism. It was a relief for people in the ancient world. This Hebrew perspective, right, which through Christianity became universal, and now we're seeing it as oppressive. How the times have changed, right? The culture is rebelling against what they see as oppressive, but the church is rebelling against what the culture is saying because it sees that as actually oppressive. So sometimes I hear really bad arguments on the church's side from certain people, which is it's a matter of purely a matter of right and wrong, but it's more than that. And you see this in St. John Paul II. He offers something more complete. He says it is a matter of right and wrong, but more than that, it's a matter of happiness. It's a matter of freedom, right? And that flips the script. So this is why the church prohibits acts of sodomy, right? So outside of the instituted covenant established between a man and a woman, which is exclusive, lifelong, and directed towards the mutual good of each spouse, as well as the procreation and education of children, sexuality will merely contribute to the reduction of happiness for the individual and for the community. So the very nature of homosexuality in all of its complicated facets, as well as the current cultural debate in all of its complicated facets, lead to an observation that there is a drastic divide between the church's understanding of freedom, anthropology, and ethics, and that of the culture. If any progress is to be made in this area, we must address the underlying philosophical divide. I also want to call out like excesses, right? Because there's excesses on all sides. I was once in Paris. It was called La Manif pour tous, which was it was a kind of protest, well, kind of like the March for Life, but this was the March for the Family against the legislation for same-sex unions in France. And I went there. I was excited to be supporting this amazing cause. Um, Obviously, like, a lot of people misunderstood why people were there. So, because you have this kind of factionalism, right? People always assume that the other side is operating from hate. I think that's the fundamental problem here is that we are always assuming that those who are ideologically opposed to us are operating from hate. What we see is that both sides are operating off of the desire for freedom, for love, for representation, for dignity, right? The suffering that we see around us, anxiety, unhappiness, depression, consumerism, poverty, all these things, right, happen because the culture we live in. People are searching for freedom, love, happiness, and all these things, but they're not finding it. They don't understand why. And I would argue that it's because they're not listening to the church, because they think the church doesn't have their happiness in mind, that she's authoritarian, that she wants to control people. This is the Enlightenment narrative, and debunking the misunderstandings of the Enlightenment is how this works. I just want to reiterate, right? You call error out when there's error. You don't discriminate. That's why I believe that, I have to call out, for example, with the help of other friends, the Society of St. Pius X in its inconsistent ecclesiology, but also the bishops in Germany and their inconsistent understanding of the church as well and what she teaches, right? And so in Germany, people have started to think alongside the culture without thinking about, wait a minute, what is the church telling us? The church wants us to be happy and free, and that is only possible if we understand that her authority as well as her laws, right, are there in place in order to make our freedom and happiness possible.